Okay, so hello and welcome to a Baldur's Gate 3 character creation guide, okay? So, we're going to be going over all aspects of character creation here. We're going to break up the background and proficiencies into a separate video. But to get it out of the way, let's talk about your origins, okay? So, origin characters, including the custom one, and the Dark Urge. So, your regular origin characters, which are all of these named people, you basically, if you select them, you will be playing as them throughout the game, okay? Not a lot of people do this, and I can see why. One, you don't actually get their voice acting in character cutscenes, if that makes sense. Like when you select an option to actually divert or talk with another NPC, you don't actually hear these characters talk, okay? Now, that being said, they do have custom lines sometimes, depending on who you're actually playing here as an origin and who you are talking to. You can actually have some custom lines that can make it a little bit more fun, okay? But in general, not a lot of people play the origin characters, and I can see why. I guess if you wanted to play one of them, you could bring another 3 companions along. If you've already played through the game once and you wanted to pick other companions to go through the game with, you could do that. They're each interesting characters that you could play through, but just remember that if you actually play as them, you won't hear their voice very much. You can hear it sometimes, but not all the time. Especially if you're the one actually being the person and talking with people, okay? Next, the Dark Urge. Okay, if this is your first playthrough, which I'm assuming it is, do not play the Dark Urge, okay? It is made for a second playthrough, just flat out, okay? It is a character that can be decently good or just straight like the most evil person you can possibly pick, okay? If you wanted to theoretically play on your first playthrough as a super evil person and kill everyone, maybe. But most people don't usually play like that on their first playthrough. The second playthrough, all bets are off, okay? It is spoiler heavy-ish when you play through. It can make events... If you haven't played through the first one, it can be a little confusing on what's happening with the Dark Urge. If you've played through the game one time, you will understand a lot more of the events that are actually happening with the Dark Urge. To each their own on what you want to do there, okay? I will just say that without getting into too heavy spoilers, that it actually makes sense for you to play a Dragonborn Dark Urge. However, you don't actually need to do so. You can play any other race as Dark Urge, but the Dragonborn makes a lot of sense. Without getting into spoilers, it makes a lot of sense for you to play a Dragonborn Dark Urge, okay? But for everyone else, the custom origin is actually how you make your regular character, okay? You can make them whoever you want. These are the generic background slates. They don't actually have unique dialogue options based on background, so you can think of whatever background. It's just like D&D. Like my first character was a paladin that fought off Strahd in Barovia, okay? And then they came and they were dropped out and they got abducted by the Nautiloid. I'm not breaking any massive spoilers here. You get abducted by a Nautiloid. But that was my character background in my head, okay? That's basically your custom origin, is whatever's in your head. There's not any unique dialogue options that you'll have from being a custom origin, okay? Next, and the most important part of this video, which will take off the biggest part of the time, is races, okay? So we have the custom origin, races. Now, I'm going to put on your screen the ranking that I have done for each one of these races according to the Baldur's Gate, or according to Baldur's Gate 3, okay? My opinion, but the gameplay mechanics of Baldur's Gate 3 is the reason I rank them as such, okay? You can see that elves are 1, Tieflings are 2, Drow are 2, humans are 2, Githyanki are 1, dwarves are 2, half-elves are 1, halflings are 2, gnomes are 2, dragonborn, sadly, are 3, and then a half-orc is a 1, okay? Now, that might be completely different from regular 5e, and that it is, because Baldur's Gate 3 has different mechanics from regular 5e, okay? So, we'll just get into it with the elves, okay? Why are they ranked number 1? Well, I'll put on your screen when I'm pulling up from the wiki, which, if you talk about elves, you have to. So, they start with their elven weapon training, okay? Besides they can move 30 feet. They gain proficiency in long swords, short bows, and long bows. Okay, now this, if you remember from my friends that are playing regular D&D, you can theoretically make some builds based upon having elven weapon training. Okay, that's way too complex of a topic for getting into here, and it's really not needed for Baldur's Gate 3. I'll just put that flat out. Okay. However, another thing that they can do is they can see in dark up to 40 feet, okay? They have dark vision up to 40 feet. Now, dark vision in this game it's very, I would say, almost necessary. It's not totally necessary. You can get around it, but you'll be blind like about half or more of the game, because in half or more of the game, it is basically completely dark wherever you go, okay? It's actually nice. If you want to check me on this, you can actually, I believe Astarion doesn't have dark vision, because there was a moment recently I was playing, and I switched to him, and I couldn't see diddly squat, and I switched back to my main character, which was a half-elf, and I could see pretty good. So dark vision is actually very nice to have in this game, especially if you want to see things in the dark, which you will be doing a lot. Next, they have Fey Ancestry, okay? They have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. Okay. Controversial hot take here. This is very good in regular D&D. It is very good in regular D&D. In Baldur's Gate 3, not really. So, the advantage on saving throws against being charmed has happened once, maybe twice from what I can recall in my whole playthrough, okay? Before getting to Act 3. Now, that's the vast majority of your game. And you know, it's not really that big of a deal. I cannot remember the last time anybody even put sleep on me. It literally has never happened, okay, from all the way through Act 1 to Act 2, working my way through Act 3. But as stated, if 2/3 of the game you're not even using the sleep or charm spell, really, I mean, it's not that useful. Regular D&D, that's different, okay? Another thing, let's get into it with the wiki. So, you have two sub-races here. You have a High Elf and Wood Elf, okay? Now, talking about High Elf, you get the cantrip Firebolt, okay? And that's all you get, which is kind of sad. And generally speaking, pulls from the wiki, both elves, High Elf and Wood Elf, you get Perception as a free proficiency. This is why elves are ranked 1, because of this and something else that the Wood Elves can get, okay? They just get a free skill. It's really weird, but that's how this works. It's a hidden thing. As you can see down here, you have a perception skill that's already there no matter what. It will always be there. Another thing is that Wood Elves can theoretically, they get 5 feet of movement, and you will also see here that they gain the stealth skill. The High Elves don't have this. The Wood Elves do, okay? I don't know why they're hidden, and they don't tell you about this, like being like, hey, subrace feature, you also gain proficiency in, stealth. Doesn't tell you that, but that's what it is. So if you play a Wood Elf, an elf that's a Wood Elf, I know, weird, but you get 2 free proficiencies, which is massive. That is the most proficiencies out of any race you can possibly play at character creation. That means you can start off with 6 proficiencies. If you want to be a bard, the elf is the best person to be because of just how many proficiencies you get just straight off of the bat. Okay, you get 6 instead of the regular 4 from everyone else. That's the way this works, so there you go, okay? That's why elves are ranked number 1 for me, is because they get the most proficiencies just straight out of the bat. And if you play a Wood Elf, you can even move even faster in combat, okay? Next, we will talk about Tieflings, okay? So, Tieflings have a base racial speed of 30 feet, which is normal. They have dark vision up to 40 feet, which again is normal. Or normal for most races, I will say, and pretty good. And then they have a hellish resistance. You have resistance to fire damage, taking only half damage from it. Fire damage comes up pretty often in Baldur's Gate 3, okay? So this is actually a very good thing to have on your Tiefling. And now I'll be putting up the wiki thing here so that you can look more at it. But for the general purposes, that's all that they really got going for them, okay? They don't have any hidden skills like the elves do. And the hellish resistance for fire is really good. Now, breaking down their sub-races, okay? They can get Produce Flame from the Asmodeus, which is actually useful because this is basically a light that doesn't have to be put on anything and can just walk around with you. This is basically having a free torch while carrying a sword and shield, okay? Or carrying a dual-hander, okay? You can literally just have a light on you, which in this game is very useful because the game imposes disadvantage on attack rolls if the area that you are attacking is too dark, which happens a lot, especially in Act 2. If you are in... So let me tell you how this works. If you are in a dungeon and there is no light around you and you have nothing and you are attacking a shadow, which is basically a ghost, you have disadvantage on all of your attack rolls because nobody has light. Even though you can see in dark vision, nobody has light, you have disadvantage. If you have this on, when they get near you enough to hit you with melee attacks, you can see them and roll normally. So it is very good. This cantrip is very good in this game, okay? Now, the Methophytosites, okay, they have Mage Hand. Yeah, this is pretty good. Mage Hand's always been very good in regular D&D. It's always very good. It's good in Baldur's Gate. Lets you basically interact with objects, which there's a lot of traps in this game. So if you do this, you can avoid a lot of traps and eating hundreds of points of damage. I'm not exaggerating there. So again, Mage Hand is always very good. Now, the Zariel Tiefling, okay, is you give advantage on intimidation and performance checks and thaumaturgy. If you are playing in this game an Explorer or the normal difficulty, which is the center one, besides the one that's called Tactician, this doesn't really affect how pissed off enemies get at you, if I'm remembering correctly. I believe Thaumaturgy just gives you advantage on these checks. There's another spell called Friends, which is technically better because it's all of the rolls, but it makes them hostile to you on Tactician mode. Not hostile, but it makes them pissed at you on Tactician mode. The other difficulties, it doesn't really matter. But this one, as a cantrip, can actually come in very handy, especially if you play a barbarian or somebody that has intimidation or performance checks as a bard. It can actually come in very handy, okay? Now, we're going to go back to the wiki and go over a little bit more detail, okay? So, Asmodeus Tieflings have a little hidden things about them. So I might have just reduced myself there or lied, I guess. They have Produce Flame, Hellish Rebuke, and Darkness at level 1, 3, and 5. So the Produce Flame, as they have here, they get at level 1. They get Hellish Rebuke, which is basically, think of it as reaction damage with a spell slot at level 3. And they get Darkness at level 5. I believe they can cast one of these each time a day for free, theoretically speaking, okay? Otherwise, they get them as spells for free, which is, again, very useful. So those are their hidden, quote-unquote, abilities that they get. The Mesophedalus Tieflings, whatever. They get Mage Hand, as we've gone over, for level 1. They get Burning Hands at level 3. Burning Hands is actually not that good in this game. I will be very honest. It is such short range. It's even shorter range than it is in 5e. And 5e was not that great of a distance. And this game is really, really not. So Burning Hands is not an amazing spell. And then you can get Flame Blade. That's up in the air as to how good it is. It can be very good and it can be decent when you have magic weapons and stuff. It just depends for your character that's at level 5. Okay. Next, the Zariel Tiefling, as we've already gone over, they get Thaumaturgy, and then they get Searing Smite, which is good on a paladin actually in this game, and then they also get Branding Smite, which is it's not amazing. It can be very good on boss enemies, but besides that, it's not really worth walking around with it when you're doing the majority of your play here, okay? So that's their gist or gish. So, my recommendations. If you want to play a paladin, play a Zariel Tiefling. If you wanted to play a Tiefling, play a Zariel Tiefling if you are playing a paladin. If you are playing a mage-ish person, you can really do either of the Asmodeus or the Mephistopheles. Sorcerer would probably be my pick if you want to play a Tiefling that way. And then Asmodeus would probably be a Warlock if you wanted to play, again, as a Warlock Tiefling. That's what I would go with, okay? The next race that we shall go over is the Drow. Again, I will put up their wiki thing so that you can see all the stuff that I see, which is they have a base racial speed of 30 feet. They have proficiencies with rapier, short sword, and hand crossbows. And they have superior dark vision. They can see up to 80 feet in the darkness, okay? And they have Fey ancestry, which we've already gone over with the elf, which is eh. The superior dark vision is very good. Now, another thing that they have changed from 5e is if the player character is a drow, you don't actually have disadvantage from sunlight, okay? NPCs that are drow do. So, just take that with a bit of salt. You don't actually get the disadvantage from sunlight, okay? Now, another thing that I'll mention here that is not very good about most of the three races that we have already gone over, and I'll keep mentioning it, is they don't have any armor proficiencies at all, which means you have to multi-class if you want to play a spellcaster-ish person, like a wizard or a sorcerer. Just throwing that out there. We'll get to humans in a minute on why they're at least decent. Drow, besides the rapier, short sword, and hand crossbow, which again, really build dependent, theoretically speaking, but the game is not as proficiency dependent on weapons as regular 5e is. So these are good if you know what you're doing. Otherwise, for normal people, it's not really a thing that you need to worry about, okay? Unless you're doing a very specific build that requires you to use one of these weapons, okay? Like crossbow expert, blah, 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 way above this pay grade of this video. Besides all of that, they also get Dancing Lights, which illuminates a 30-foot radius. It's a concentration spell, and it lasts for 10 turns, and this is not very good. Because, 1, it's concentration, and 2, it can't move. Yes, theoretically speaking, if you pop this in a room and you're not a spellcaster, this will give you the ability to see targets further away. So if you pop this and you see an enemy that's in darkness, and then your archer can have a regular, normal rolls against it, theoretically, yes, this could be decent, but it's really not. It's really, really, really not, okay? One of their, let's see, we'll get into the Drow magic in a second here. They have two sub-races, the Lorsworn and the Sildrain Drow. Okay, I'm butchering all of these names, but basically, these are the good Dark Elves, these are the bad Dark Elves. These guys have red eyes, these guys have bluish eyes. Again, you can completely customize your character to your heart's content with all of that. You can even give the other one red eyes if you want, okay? Without getting too heavy into lore, that's generally how they break down. If you wanted to play this Drow, you get a few more good options in dialogue from what I have seen, and if you play these people, you get more evil options on dialogue if that's what you're going for, okay? The thing here that I will point out as I throw the wiki thing up here is they get spells as Drow magic. I don't know why it doesn't tell you this, but there you go. You get, what is it? Dancing Lights, which, as we've already gone over, is not very good. However, they also get Fairy Fire and the Darkness spell. So Fairy Fire at level 3 and the Darkness spell at level 5. Darkness can be very good. Fairy Fire is amazing. It's one of my most favorite spells in Baldur's Gate 3 and in 5e just generally. Giving advantage to all of your party to attack a target is ridiculously good, okay? And they also go with the interpretation of Fairy Fire, which most GMs and DMs do, is that once a target is Fairy Fired, the Fairy Fire stays on it even if it moves out of the original casting circle. That's gonna go way over a lot of people's heads, but just remember that Fairy Fire, if you hit people, you always have advantage on them until concentration is broken, okay? If they fail their save and they have Fairy Fire cast on them, it's there until you lose concentration or a minute goes by. So it's very, very, very good spell, okay? Darkness can be very good. It blinds and obscures targets. Theoretically, if you played a Shadow Sorcerer, you could sit in there. There's a lot of combinations you can do with that, but we're going way over in this video, but there's a Sorcerer Shadow magic thing where you can sit in darkness, nobody can hit you, and you can zap, 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 zap. But that's, again, way too in-depth for this video, okay? But just remember, darkness is also a good spell. So they get pretty good spells as Drow, and they can see really good in darkness, which is very good in this game because, again, a lot of the areas in this game are going to be basically pitch black, slash the Underdark, and other stuff, okay? So that is going to be Drow, and again, that's why I ranked them a number 2. And that's why I ranked number 2 for Tieflings and number 1s for Elves, because Elves get proficiencies, Tieflings get some good spells, and Drows get some good spells, okay? Next, humans, okay? You'll see that I have ranked them as a 2 here. We'll go over why. They have a base racial speed of 30 feet. They have the civilian militia little thing, okay? You have weapon proficiencies with spears, pikes, halberds, and glaives, and armor proficiency with light armor and shields. Okay, now humans are like the bog standard people of this game. Okay, which, you know, that's just their little gish thing they got going for them. They don't have any sub races, so there you go. Their other little thing that they get, which again is not stated anywhere, but why? They actually get another skill proficiency. So they actually get one other skill just off the bat. Why they don't tell you this, I don't know. But they get one extra proficiency just straight off the bat for everyone. So not as many as an elf, but they do have 5 instead of 4, like pretty much every other race, okay? They also have the human versatility thing, which, again, it actually does tell you get a skill here, so I was wrong. And your carrying capacity is increased by a quarter, by 25%. Your carrying capacity does not mean a damn thing in this game. You can always go back to your camp literally all the time, every time, for the vast majority of, actually just 100% of combats, okay? Like, before you go into the combat, theoretically you might not if you're, like, in a dungeon. No, even then you can't. So the carrying capacity is not an issue, okay? This is literally a useless stat here. The extra proficiency, so you can have 5 proficiencies, is really good here, okay? Now, why humans are ranked 2 and not like a 3? The reason is strictly because of the civilian militia. This gives them armor proficiency with light armor and shields. Those 2 things, if you play a spellcaster, can save your life, okay? The light armor gives you the ability to wear light armor instead of basically clothes, so you can have, like, above 10 AC, which means the enemy won't focus you to death on tactician mode, okay? And then shields. Shields give you a +2 AC. There's no weird thing that you have to do, like take up Warcaster so that you can theoretically be wielding a staff and a shield and then blah, 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 blah. No, Baldur Gate doesn't do that, okay? If you have a shield and a sword on the other hand, you can still cast spells willy-nilly. There's nothing that's stopping you, okay? Like in 5e there would be. So that is why they are pretty good for any spellcaster. So any class that wants to be a sorcerer or a wizard, maybe consider being a human just because of the actual proficiencies you get in light armor and shields, okay? So that's why they're ranked at number 2. Let's go on to the Githyanki, okay? So in regular 5e, they're not amazing. However, in Baldur's Gate 3, they are broken. They are a 1. Okay, I'm gonna put their wiki thing up for you guys so you can read this. So they have 30 feet of movement, which is standard. They also have a martial prodigy, a lifetime, blah blah blah. You get armor proficiencies in light and medium armor, so they're already better than the humans on the spellcasting side because of just the ability to wear that armor. They also gain proficiency in short swords, long swords, and great swords. Okay, they are missing the shield, which can be a little bit of a problem. But you can get around. There are various ways to get around that because you have medium armor. And you have short swords, long swords, and great swords, okay? Not really. Every martial character that's going to be using one of those, you already have proficiencies if you're a fighter paladin, blah, 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 insert the thing here. Now, besides that, they also get, before we talk about their magic, they also get this thing called ancestral knowledge, okay? In regular 5e, they get 1 skill per long rest that they can change out and can be in any proficiency. In Baldur's Gate 3, it can mean 4 or 5. So, you gain proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. Let me show you how broken this is. So, if you wanted to have proficiency in all of other skills, so let's say you put your other 4 proficiencies in something else other than, let's just say like intelligence. That means if you picked intelligence to get skill in all proficiencies in intelligence, that means you would have Arcana, you would have history, you would have investigation, you would have nature, you would have religion. Okay, that's 5. That is 5 additional skills that you get for free. I'm just making sure. Yeah, it's 5 extra skills you get for free every day. Okay, that means theoretically speaking, you could have 9 proficiencies that you are skilled in. 9 proficiencies that you are skilled in throughout the entire day. That's broken. I thought elves were good and I ranked them a 1, but they also have their Fae thing that they can do. You get all of them. You get 9. You can get 9 skills a day. So you can have like 4 other skills in wisdom and strength and whatever, and then you get all of the intelligence ones too. So yes, I use Lae'zel. I give her the little amulet that gives her intelligence to 17 even though she's a fighter. And then I use this ability to choose all intelligence skills, and then she can be basically a wizard just walking around with you, because why not? And they're proficient in all their skills. So yeah, this ability is just straight broken. Not only that, so not only does that already rank them as a number 1 in my opinion, they also gain Mage Hand, which is their cantrip down here, which is already a very good spell, okay? Then you can get Enhanced Leap. In this game, Baldur's Gate specifically, not D&D, it's very good, because in this game, flying is not very useful, unfortunately. In D&D it is. However, the Enhanced Leap is very good in this game because you're going to be jumping a lot in this game for exploring. And this can really save you, especially in Act 1. At some point, without spoiling anything, at some point you go to the Underdark and you have to jump across a bridge. You have this, you can leap across it and not have to burn spells to do so, okay? That, and there's a lot of other areas that you can get access to with the, basically the Enhanced Leap ability, okay? Their last thing, which is broken, at level 5, they get Misty Step. Okay, this is one of the best spells in the game because 1, you can Misty Step as a bonus action, and then you can cast a spell, theoretically speaking, in Baldur's Gate 3 compared to regular 5e. And if you are playing a fighter character, which most Githyanki will, I mean, there's a whole race thing, is you can Misty Step, and Misty Step is broken because characters can leap up to 30 feet in the air and then be like, haha, you cannot get me. And then your turn comes up, and then you Misty Step up there, and then you beat them to death with the greatsword. Yes, it's very good, especially if you pair it with a paladin as such. Then you can get a lot of uses of Misty Step because, again, each one of these spells is once per day. However, if you have a paladin, you can multi-cast it a lot. So there you go. It's pretty good there, okay? So that's why Githyanki are ranked as a 1 on this sheet, because they can get stupid proficiencies, and they're actually the most broken race in the game. Like, I should really put them as like an S plus tier, okay? That's how good they are. They're not a 1, they're like an S plus tier, if there even was such a thing, because of just the stupid amount of proficiencies that they can get. Alright? So, we are now going to be moving on to dwarves, okay? I have ranked them a number 2. So, dwarves in regular 5e can be very good, theoretically speaking, if you do it right. In this game, yeah, they're pretty good. They're not like an awful race, like we'll talk about the Dragonborn, but they'd have some minuses. So they have their 5 speed reduced. They can only move 25 feet per turn instead of 30. That might not seem like a lot, and especially in this game, it really is. It actually is pretty detrimental. It's not like the most harsh thing that you can't get over. You can, especially if you start pairing it up with Boots of Speed, and then you can also get a ring that increases your movement speed by 10 feet, right? So it's not like the end of the world. You also have Dwarven Combat Training, which means you gain proficiency in battle axes, hand axes, light hammers, and warhammers. This is straight dog shit, okay? I mean, there are very few of these items in the game that are actually magical. 2, you get proficiency in these, but if you play a fighter or anyone that's actually going to be on the front line, you already gain proficiency with every weapon. So this would pertain more to spellcasters, and spellcasters, you probably don't need to have a hammer, blah, 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 blah. It's not even maces, because there's actually a mace that you can get without spoiling anything. That's like a legendary mace, blah, 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 blah. And they just include maces. And that makes having proficiency in that would be very good, but you don't, unless you play a fighter. So, there's that. Next thing that they have going for them is they have dark vision up to 40 feet, again, standard, and they have dwarven resilience. They have advantage on saving throws against poison, and they have resistance to poison damage. This can be very useful, especially in this game. This can be pretty dang useful. Okay? Now, past that, I'm just making sure that I am looking at the same notes that we all are. Yes, okay. So, they have different sub-races. It looks like they don't get anything special, but we'll talk about the Dwarf in a second, because they do. So, the Golden Dwarves, basically, your hit points increase by 1, and increase by 1 every time you gain a level. So, theoretically speaking, you could theoretically get 12 HP from this. It's not, it's not that, it's really not that good of a feature. Now, if you wanted to stack this, as much as you can, which theoretically you can, you would take the feat Tough, which for 2 HP every level, you would take a Golden Dwarf, and then you would be a fighter with a shield, and then you would get Heavy Armor Master, so that you can be a tank on Tactician mode. That's really, really, really not needed, because Tactician mode is really not that hard, especially when you get to level 5. It really becomes real easy then. It's really not that bad, okay? But if you wanted to be Uber Tank Man, theoretically you could do this, or you wanted to be a Barbarian. No, you would want to be a fighter so you can take Heavy Armor Master, and then pair this up with Tough. That's how you would do this for Golden Dwarf, so not really a good sub-race. The Shield Dwarf, however, can be. Now, they get proficiency in light and medium armor on top of their little axe things they already got, okay? So, this can be very good, because this means that you can play a spellcasting dwarf that, one, doesn't have access to shields, which just kind of sucks, but you can have access to medium armor as a spellcaster, which means you can play a sorcerer dwarf with medium armor starting off the bat, which is, pretty good. A lot of people do this in 5e because one of them gets heavy armor proficiency. As a dwarf, I believe that was a thing. And then they can just rock heavy armor as a cleric or a sorcerer or whatever from day one. But in this game, it's medium and light armor, so it's still pretty good. In my opinion, better than Golden Dwarf if you wanted to put it that way. And then you have the Duragar, the best one of these. You have superior dark vision, so instead of the 40 feet, you get 80 feet. And you have the Duragar resistance. Okay, you have advantage on saving throws against illusions and being charmed and paralyzed. Now, these do come up. The illusions does come up quite a significant amount of times. The charmed, not really. And the paralyzed does. The paralyzed can really mess you up, okay? Really badly mess you up. And if you have advantage on those, that's really good, okay? And not only that, they also have magical spells. Again, it doesn't tell you here. I don't know why it doesn't, but it, blah, 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 blah. So as you can see there on the wiki, we have the Enlarge spell at level 3 and the Invisibility spell at level 5. Both stupid good spells. So Enlarge basically lets you do more damage. You have advantage on strength checks. If you're fighter at all, or paladin at all, anybody that hits anything, such as a barbarian or whatever, Enlarge is very good. It is always a good spell on those people. Next, Invisibility. Invisibility is also very good, because if you need to seek through things, instead of the stupid mechanic of stealth, which we'll get into in a separate video, you can just walk through them because you're invisible and they can't actually see you. So there you go. Okay, so again, really, really good spells there for the Duragar. So if you wanted to play a dwarf, theoretically the best one to play is a Duragar, or you could play a shield dwarf if you wanted to run like a mage person, okay? Moving on, we will move on to half-elves. Okay, I have ranked them a 1. Totally not a personal bias, because my character that I played through this game the first time was a half-elf. Totally not a bias there. But they're ranked a 1. Now let's go over why. They get 30 feet movement bonus, so 30 feet movement standard. They get civilian militia, just like the regular humans do, which means you get spears, pikes, halberds, glaives, armor proficiency with light armor, and shields, and the shields are very useful, okay? You also get the dark vision of 40 feet, so you can actually see in the dark unlike humans, and you get the Fey Ancestry ability from the elves, okay? Which, again, these are all very good. Next, on top of that, depending on the subrace, you get more stuff. So, if you play a high half-elf, you basically get a cantrip. Not amazing, but hey, you can also actually choose, I think you can choose the cantrip? Yes, you can actually choose a cantrip, so you can get Firebolt or whatever other cantrip you want from this little list right here. If you play anybody, let's say you play a Barbarian, you can choose one of these to use. Next is the Wood Half Elf, and this is the character I actually played through with first time. You get a movement speed of 5 feet bonus, okay? Now, and a hidden skill called, because you get proficiency with a stealth skill. Why it doesn't tell you this, don't know, but you do. You get a free skill, and you move 5 feet faster. This, again, this is really also with the Elder Elf up here, with the Wood Elf up there. But you pair this with Boots of Speed, and you give yourself a ring. If you give yourself a ring from the uncommon, you move at 45 feet per turn. And then if you give yourself the boost of speed, then you can move 85 feet per turn because you basically dash. Yeah, it's really good. So if you want to play a rogue, you're going to do that. And then you have the Drow Half-Elf. Okay, now, again, Drow Elves are pretty good. However, Drow Half-Elves are also pretty good. Because, again, they get Dancing Lights, Fairy Fire, and the Darkness spell. They get Dancing Lights at level 1, which I've already gone over, which is not very good. You get Fairy Fire, which is an excellent spell, amazing spell that you should always take. And then they get the Darkness spell at level 5. Again, these are all very, 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 very good spells. Okay, and they get them as a half-elf, which means that you get the light armor and the shields benefit. So if you wanted to play a character that had the Fey ancestry, which is good, they have dark vision, they have light armor and shield proficiencies. Okay, and then you wanted even more magic on top of that, and you played a Drow half-elf. You get 3 spells, you get 2 spells for free and 1 cantrip for free, and you can get shields and light armor, and then you can be a sorcerer or wizard and really start wrecking house, okay? Which can be very useful. The one thing that they don't actually get for Drow half-elves is they don't actually get the superior dark vision that regular Drow elves do. So they can only see 40 feet instead of 80 feet. Boo-hoo, that's really not that big of a deal, okay? Next, we're going to be moving on to halflings. Sad halflings. So, halflings have a few good benefits. One of them is not their base racial speed of 25 feet, which just means they're slow. They do have lucky. When you roll a 1 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can reroll the die and must use a reroll die, which is, again, very good. And they have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Frightened can be very bad in this game, because frightened doesn't make you run away. It makes it so that you cannot move at all. You literally can't move at all. Now, this isn't that bad, because most characters in this game can pull out a bow and at least shoot the frightened creature, or do something, or have a spell, or party member to do something. But having advantage of being frightened in this game is actually very useful, okay? So we're going to talk about their 2 thing. Now, what they don't have, which is a single reason you basically play a halfling, is they don't have the D&D trait or feat that they can take, which I believe, I'll look it up for you guys, so hang on. Okay, so the reason I rank them as a 2 not a 1, now bear with me, all the D&D people that are screaming at me. Yes, this race does get the re-rolls on 1s for basically everything if you roll, which can be very useful, okay? But that only applies to you when you roll, okay? That's not everyone else, it's just you. They do not get the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. They do not get Bountiful Luck, which means that everyone within 30 feet of you, if they roll a 1, means that they can re-roll their saving throw, and you can use your reaction to do that. You don't get that feat here at all. It's not a thing. You also don't get the Second Chance feat, which basically, when a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to force that creature to re-roll. Once you use this ability, you can't use it. You can't use it again until you roll initiative at the start of combat, or until you finish a short or long rest. Again, they don't have the 2 things that really make halflings really, really good in D&D. I know most people think, and I did too, that Bountiful Luck was in Baldur's Gate. It's not. And they both, again, me and most people thought that Bountiful Luck applied to halflings because it would be a thing. No, it is not. So the ability to only reroll yourself is still brokenly good, but since you don't have Bountiful Luck, you can't give it to everyone, which would make this character a 1 or SS plus tier. It's not. It's a 2. Okay, because you're already slower than everyone. You get the lucky thing on yourself, which, you know, is decent, and then you can get Brave, which is, again, pretty good. However, going into their sub-races here, you have the Light Half-Foot, which means they have advantage on stealth checks. This is not needed at all. It is actually not that good. Regular D&D, it is very good. very, very good in regular D&D if you actually had an ability like this. The Strong-Hearted Halfling, where you have advantage on resistance, you have advantage and resistance against poison and poison damage, is very good in this game. So I would take that one. Stealth is not good, and then in this game, and strong heart resilience is very good. Okay, you don't get any other sort of special little things you can do spell wise. So again, they're just ranked 2 for me. I know I've upset a lot of people like that, but hey, those are my reasons. Next, we're going to be talking about the Gnome. The Gnome I have ranked here as a 2, okay? They, again, move at 25 speed, which means they're slower than everyone else. But they also have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, which in the later parts of the game can come up a bit, past like the end of Act 2 through Act 3-ish. It can be decent. But that's what they got going for them, just based generally. And as we're looking at the wiki here, you can see that they also, depending on which subrace they get, only one of them, it seems, can actually have dark vision. There are 2 that can have dark vision. I don't know why, but hey, there you go. Yeah, so regular gnomes can't see in the dark. And then their subrace features they can see in the dark. Great, love it. Love this game. So, rock gnomes, they have dark vision, just like every other gnome, apparently. And they also add twice a proficiency bonus to history checks, which means if you play a wizard in this game, or somebody that has proficiency with history checks, and also has a really good stat boost to it, and also wants to be stupidly good at it, like rolling a minimum, having a plus 10 to their roll, the Artificer lore would be very good for history checks. I could see this being useful maybe on your first playthrough, just because there are some checks that roll in the background. Like, history checks roll in the background a lot more than you actually do a history check in conversation. It actually rolls a lot in the background to give you more information. So this could be good on that sense if you wanted to learn a lot more about the lore of Baldur's Gate 3. But that's up to you there. They're not really that. It's not really amazing, but this is there. The Forest Gnomes, they gain Speak with Animals, and they can cast it at will, which means that you can cast it as many times a day as possible, but you really only need to do this once because it lasts until your long rest, which means you can communicate with all the funny people. Now, this spell is stupidly good in this game, and I would always try to get this spell because talking to the animals in this game is like half of the fun of this game. Okay, that and speaking with dead. So, very, pretty good thing. They have their dark vision up to 40 feet, and then we have the Deep Gnome. So, the Deep Gnome have 80 feet of dark vision, so they have superior dark vision. They have advantage on stealth checks. So we've already gone over. Stealth in this game is not very good. Having advantage on that is not amazing. Regular D&D, that would be broken. In this game, it's not, okay? But there you go. They don't get any special little things. They don't get any little special magical things. So that's the gnomes for you as a rank 2. Not amazing, not the best race, but not terrible, okay? The same cannot be said for the Dragonborn, unfortunately, okay? Now, the reason for this is basically, so the Dragonborn start off with 30 feet, okay? They look cool, I give you people all of that. Depending upon their subrace, okay, they can get a weapon and an acid breath, okay? And it spews in a cone. It's a dex save, and it can be like 2d6 damage, and you can choose basically whatever you want here, okay, for your breath weapon. On top of that, they gain resistance to that type of damage. If I was going to personally say what you should probably use, it would either be acid, because acid comes up quite a lot, or fire. Because the fire would be a lot more useful later-ish in Act 1 and then going into Act 2 because of just how many things people throw at you with bombs of fire for resistances. However, why they are ranked 3 on here, and I'll post like a wiki shot of it, is your breath weapon. It's a one-time use, okay? And it levels up very slowly, apparently. At level 6, you can get 3d6, and then At level 11, you can get 4d6. Now, why is it not useful? Why is it ranked like a 3? Okay? As we've already gone over, the Tieflings get their own sort of buffs on top of just the breath weapon. However, they are using the old interpretation of the Dragonborn, which is why nobody really liked them, which is you take an action to do so, okay? Which can be very detrimental. Again, 2d6 is not a lot of damage, and it only upgrades at level 6 to 3d6 for a whole action. If you play a fighter, that's not amazing, and you only get this once. You only get it one time, okay? And it recharges on a short rest. That's the problem with it, is it upgrades theoretically. At level 11, this is literally doing nothing on tactician mode. You literally just piss them off, okay? At level 6 with 3d6, yeah, maybe. The 2d6 at level 1 and 2 and 3 can be very good, okay? But past that, it's really not, especially for your whole action, okay? That means a whole spell. That means 2 attacks. If you're a fighter, that could potentially mean 3 attacks at level 5 if you had Polearm Master. It's just not very good. The resistance, I give you that, is pretty good, okay? However, the Tieflings get resistance to basically fire damage, and they have their own magical spells that they can do, so they beat you there. And, fun fact, Dragonborn can't see in the dark. So, again, another massive minus in my opinion, okay? Dragonborn, with the chromatic and the gem dragons and stuff in regular D&D, have been fixed up with the release of the new books for the Dragonborn, so that they can use their, basically their breath as a weapon attack, which makes it a lot better, and you get so many of those per short rest. They're using the old interpretation for Baldur's Gate 3, okay? It's sad, but that's the way it is, okay? That's why Dragonborn aren't very good. They get a breath weapon, it scales very poorly throughout the game, and they get resistance, which is their shining feature, and then they don't have dark vision, which is kind of really a big detriment here, I'll be honest with you. But humans make up for it in proficiencies, that they get their extra proficiency, and then their light armor and shields. You don't get any of that. You just don't get any of that. So, unfortunately, Dragonborn are just not the best race in this game. Now, that does not mean at all that you cannot play them, okay? You can 100% beat this game as a Dragonborn on Tactician mode, no problem. You can do that. Please go play a Dragonborn if you want to, okay? But they are statistically the worst race in this game, and it's sad. Maybe a modder, theoretically speaking, could change that a bit, right? Where you could actually use the breath weapon, multiple times, so you could use like 2 attack actions to do it, and then it would, you get 3 or 4 of them instead of 1 that does piss damage, okay? So, unfortunately, they're not very good in the game, but please do not let that stop you from playing them, okay? Half-Orcs. Ranked to 1. Why? Because it's really good to play a Half-Orc, especially in a combat game, which this is, okay? They have their base racial speed, which means that they get 30 feet, okay? They get their dark vision of 40 feet, which is very good. They have relentless endurance, which means that if you get hit and you drop to 0, you regain 1 point instead of becoming downed, okay? Now, if I remember correctly, this only works once, according to the wiki that I'm also showing you guys. This only works once per long rest. However, this can literally mean the difference between winning a fight and losing a fight at very early levels and at the end of the game. Especially with those big bosses. You get hit with 150 points of damage and you just get up. Okay? And that was their one boss AoE killer. Okay? If that kills everyone in your party and then you stand back up, okay, you can throw a health potion to your cleric and get them up. And then you can run at the enemy. So, it's very good, okay? But it only works once per long rest. Even then, it's still really good. And then you have Savage Attack. When you land a critical hit with a melee weapon, you do extra dice of damage, of weapon damage. You pair this with, I believe, a Barbarian, and then you can just roll stupid critical damage. You can even do this with a Paladin. You do this with a Paladin, you roll stupid damage. And, without getting into big spoilers, theoretically, if you wanted to go down this path, you could unlock the ability to guarantee critical hits, I think, like once per day. And then you Divine Smite that with like a level 3 Divine Smite, and then you do it with this ability, and then you just kill it. You kill whatever it is. So it's really good abilities, okay? Besides that, they actually gain a skill. They call it Intimidation, which can be it's actually pretty useful in this game. There's a lot of Intimidation checks, so I'll just put that out there that you can go through. So Intimidation as a skill proficiency is pretty good, and that's your extra skill. That means you have 5 skill proficiencies, and you are extremely good in combat, which in Baldur's Gate 3 is the vast majority of this game. Not gonna lie. So, you know, there you go. For why they are ranked number 1. Okay? So, that will wrap up here the origins and the races of Baldur's Gate 3 and how I've ranked them, and we've gone over their stats, okay? So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please leave a like. If you didn't, well, I'm sorry, but hopefully you'll stick around and watch the next video, maybe. Otherwise, I'll put the next video up there, which is going to be our backgrounds and our proficiencies, okay? And then I'll explain to you which proficiencies are good and which backgrounds are good, okay? All right, I'll see people there when that video's out. Let's see. Bye-bye for now.